Hi, my name is Miren Gutierrez. I am going to talk today about how to write stories about development and the environment. Um, you will have to excuse me. I apologize for the quality of the sound, and do not worry if you cannot read the text because you'll be able to access the presentation and also the video that I include with this presentation in the links that are provided below in the description of the video. I will talk about other issues like sources for this type of stories and other best practices in environmental and development journalism in other videos. So let's start. With advice from Randy Olson, who is a scientist turned filmmaker and who says that scientific jargon should be banned from stories if you want to reach your audiences. I recommend you click on the link provided below in the description of the video and hear this a 10-minute talk on how to communicate research in climate change and the environment if you want to reach the general public, which is extremely important if you are trying to create awareness and change policy, practice, etc. So for a development or environmental story, what first tips come to mind? Well, the first thing is that you have to sell it to editors and readers. Stories about development and the environment are very difficult to sell, as you probably know already. So how do you sell a story about these complex issues? The first thing is that you put a face in your story. The storytelling, you make it relevant to individuals, to citizens. That's how you start selling a story about the development and the environment. Also, you should include numbers, and they have to be accurate. Otherwise, your story is undermined. Numbers, examples, descriptions help sell the story. Also, another very important thing for this kind of stories is to provide context. So the event, fact, or issue you're talking about is framed and easily understandable. Another advice that I would give is that you put a woman in your story. For example, even though women produce 70% of food in sub-Saharan Africa and make up half of the region's population, for example, they're only 11% of the sources in stories about development in Africa. So I would advise you to find women to talk to and also to present disaggregated data about how development issues, development facts affect women and men differently. So it's all about accuracy, detail, and a human face. Pitching stories is also very difficult. Pitching development stories is very difficult because editors don't like them or think that their audiences are not interested in them. But that's where your first step, where your work starts, pitching your story to an editor. So pinning down your story idea is crucial if you want to sell it to your editor first. How do you do that? Well, you will have to be very concise, clear, but do not oversell it. Otherwise, it will be counterproductive. To do that, you need, again, context. You need to place your story somewhere, sometime. I think a fundamental question is the so what question. So what's in there for me? And it has to be answered upfront in your pitching. It is fundamental to tell the reader and your editor first why this story is so fundamental for them. What is the stake? That's the first thing that you have to tackle when pitching a story. Also, it's very important that to let your editor know who you are intending to interview, and what sort of extra information you're gonna get for the story. Again, everything you do, pitching the story, etc., precision. You have to be precise and accurate. I told you about how to pitch a story, what to include in a development story, how to cover a conference that is dedicated to development or the environment. Well, early preparation and research is key in order to prepare for such a thing. If you're going to cover a conference, you have to check in advance who is going to that conference, what is relevant to your story and to your readership. What is your country context? What is at stake for your country or your audience? You have to also identify what's likely to hit the headlines, even if it doesn't have to do with your audiences. That may create a hook for your story. So, what are the likely stories that are about to are about to be produced from that conference? It's a good idea to look at the last year's conference, what the theme was, what the stories were, and how do they compare with today's story. Focus, that's a very important thing during covering a conference. Conferences include hundreds of issues, I would say, hundreds and thousands of sources of information. So you have to know what you have to prepare in advance, and you have to know what you are looking for, and also be prepared to react also to the unexpected. So you have to have a story in your head, but you have to be flexible enough to react to unexpected things. And also you have to be right at choosing, be sure that you are in the right place where things are happening. Also, again, in this case, it's very important to have the context of the meeting or conference in advance. Do your basic research at home before traveling, and have it ready, handy to be used, including names, spelling, definitions, acronyms, etc. So you don't waste any time looking for that information during the conference, especially if you are about to produce a same-day analysis. It has to be quick. Also, what do the data tell us, and are they slanted? Is there any bias that you have to take into account in the sort of data that you're getting? And again, context is important, yes, but what's the news? That's your first paragraph. What's the news? What's new? What's again, what's in it for you? What's at stake? So it's very important that beforehand you have a clear idea of what your audience is. For same-day stories or analysis, you have to contact or call ahead of time to set up interviews, do pre-interviews even, to get the context, get the background, gather background information, basic information about how the story, what the context of the story is. Even have some context paragraphs handy, already written, so you don't have to waste time doing that during the conference or during your interview. Check correct names and titles. That's really important, because you see lots of mistakes, and editors just hate to correct that sort of thing. I tell you out of experience. And think about what stories can break from the event or the issue you're writing about, and identify relevant sources beforehand. So it's all about preparation, focus, and storytelling. Thank you very much, and do not miss my my second video on sources for development or environmental stories.